Hello everyone, AR Productions here, and today I'll be doing a review of this. This is a limited edition train pack from Hornby, the Caledonian. This one specifically is the R2610 train pack of the Caledonian Single with 3 coaches. I got this second hand. The set isn't complete, however. I've only got the locomotive and the brake coach. I did, however, get it for £60, which is quite a bargain considering usually you can only get the locomotive on its own for about £80. So the box comes in the usual Hornby presentation packaging for 2008, which is when this particular train pack was released. And before we get into the review, I just want to point out something rather hilarious in my opinion. So Hornby goes on to mention that the model was first introduced in 1963. It's making a comeback in nearly 45 years, so 2008. And where possible to keep the integrity of the first Hornby model, number 123, the original body styling has been maintained. However, the chassis and motor have been upgraded to the level expected by today's modeler. So is it just a toy with an embellished livery and a mediocre mechanism? Let's have a look then. So, box opens in its usual fashion. Just pull out the sleeve, and everything else falls out. So quite luckily, I do have the original certificate. So this one is number 2945 of 3000. And of course, it comes with the instructions. As you can see, the box has been in storage for quite some time as there are some stains. Very nice. So it just shows you body removable, locomotive maintenance and such like. So getting onto the locomotive itself. Didn't come with any detail packs, but we do have the old-fashioned insulating sleeve for the decoder. So I'll get the locomotive out first. It's just push from the back. So just remember that phrase, the level expected by today's modeler. Hee. And the tender. And I'll also get out the carriage. So right off the bat, there is a fundamental issue. Now, this is an older locomotive, and of course, it's prototypically quite small. But for Hornby, even in 2008, to go around saying it's been upgraded to the level expected by today's modelers is rather far-fetched. Locomotive and tender, she weighs around 225 grams, which is lighter than a comparatively tiny Hornby J15. The locomotive herself weighs just about the same as a Hornby J83, and she's only 30 grams heavier than a W4 Peckett. So in order to compensate for that, Hornby have used traction tyres. And if that weren't bad enough, there's no electrical connection between locomotive and tender, thus no additional tender pickups, and the wheels are made of plastic, and frankly they're rather toy-like. So, rant over, let's get on with the review. So, starting with the locomotive herself, as Hornby says, the original body styling has been maintained, and as a result, the model is rather basic. In terms of separately fitted parts, there aren't that many. We do have metal buffers, but they aren't sprung. They do have a very nice shine to them. We have 2 separately fitted handrails in the cab, and a separately fitted metal whistle, which is a very nice touch. The rest of the details, however, are just part of the plastic moulding. So we do have a nice amount of paintwork. We have the silver and gold embellishments on the smoke box. We have a silver painted handrail and various other details around the model. The lining is without a doubt, however, very, very nice. It's done to a very high standard and extremely crisp and consistent. Around the wheels there is some missing, but I attribute that to the fact that I got this model second-hand and not brand new. On the other side is pretty much the same. We have the Westinghouse pump, which is again just part of the moulding. We have the Caledonian Railway crest and the builder's plate, which are very finely printed. I'm fairly certain they are legible, so that's quite good, especially for the age. And we have the number on the cab side and some more lovely lining. In terms of cab detail, yeah, you'd have to paint it yourself. There aren't any glazed windows, and yeah, it's all just part of the moulding, unfortunately. We do have this rather unrealistic toy-like connection to the tender. as you can see. Speaking of which, the tender again, similar standard, it is quite light. It does have some very nice lining on the underframe and along the tender itself with the black and white bands. The Caledonian Railway crest and lettering is printed onto a very high standard, very crisp and clear. The coal load isn't removable and just looks like your typical 1960s revamped model sort of coal load. Again, separately fitted metal buffers, but they aren't sprung. And we have the rather ungainly D-type tension lock coupler, which is removable with a screw, but yeah, not ideal. There aren't any NEM pockets. So that's it for the locomotive. Unfortunately, the coach isn't much different. I get the impression this is just a retooling or a rehash of the original 1960s tool of these coaches. Again, it is very nice. The lining is very crisp. The printing is done to a very high standard. The glazing has a fairly nice shine and reflectiveness to it. There is no interior detail. In fact, you can see the screws where the body fits onto the chassis, which is a bit of a shame. We do have metal wheels, which are nice. They're very freewheeling, so that's good. So, yeah. Alright, I'll put her on my layout and we'll give her a test run. So here she is on my layout, and just before we test run her, just want to go over the mechanism, which is fair. It's not the best, it's just a 3-pole M-type motor, which some people say are notorious for burning out, ironic as this loco has a traction tyre. We have all-wheel pickups on the loco, nothing in the tender. We do have that traction tyre, so really you only have pickups on the rear and pony wheels. We do have a set of turned brass bearings on the driver and the rear wheel, which is quite good, and the base keeper plate is removable. The pickups aren't, but you can fully clean them and access them and fully oil and clean the bearings. So I've got my trusty little gauge master. Let's give this a test. Oh, before we do, I've also added just this very small spring. You sometimes get you get them in push pens, and what that does in theory, ideally you need to add more weight in the tender, is just prevent the loco from doing that essentially. The model's not very well balanced, and just the tiniest tap causes it to come off this rear pony, and thus the electrical connection is not going to be as good. So this just helps to reduce that just a tiny bit. So easing up on the controller. Oh, struggling a bit. So yeah, she's not the best crawler. I will say that the gearing is not very competent at all, so I'll just take her out of shot and bring her back in at 50% speed. And as you can see, that's just a bit ridiculous. I mean, yes, this locomotive managed a 100-mile stretch on the Scottish main line at a mile a minute, but really she's only practically going to be going at 30 or 40 miles an hour, so I don't quite understand why Hornby felt the need to make it run so fast. She is relatively smooth, but I am struggling to get a crawl. That massive driving wheel probably doesn't help. So she can go fairly slowly. There is a visible amount of jerking. That'll be due to the lack of flywheel. But if you get out the right spot, she can go fairly slowly. Backward as well. Oh, I think, yeah, she's cut out. So yeah, the continuity with the track is not very good, and it seems that the weight distribution, the traction tyre, doesn't particularly help either. Which is a shame. As I've said, she is a lovely model, but she's just let down by a not so adequate mechanism. But if you get her at the right spot, she can do a decent crawl. Anyway, I'll hook her up to her carriage and we'll have a good old-fashioned running session. really enjoy this loco, especially since I got it at a good price. Objectively speaking though, it's not a premium item, even for the standards of 2008. If you can get it at a good price, then I definitely recommend getting one, especially one of the older Hornby Triang ones, as they tend to run a bit better despite being older. As for the limited edition set, if I'm being brutally honest, it's just a railroad locomotive with railroad coaches. At most I'd pay is $150 for the full set and in mint condition. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Oh no! Oh, come on! Why does it stop there of all places?